Good to see everybody. I see Kent is moderating today. Hope everybody's been on their best behavior. In light of that, sometimes when the second in command takes over, things tighten up pretty quick. Catfish Hunter's throwing a 3-hitter in the 8th inning, but he's calling to the bullpen for Goose Gossage, all right? So I'm going to be on my best behavior. I hope you guys have been so far today, and I'm sure Fink will get a very detailed report after all this is over. As I was out there on the field today, you're grateful to be living and working in South Carolina. That shorts and a sweatshirt weather. All right, if you could bottle that, capture that 365 days a year, I would take it. Right, you're out there. It's a little crisp at the beginning, and then by the end, you got a pretty good sweat going, which running around out there today. So that was this time of year. You're especially grateful to be living and working here, but it is work, right? It is work, and it's hard. And when you put so much into it, all these long days and getting home, at 10 o'clock at night and things like that, you want to see the hard work pay off, right? Especially for the players, because these kids are very dedicated and put a lot into this. They do a lot extra on their own and things of that nature, and we obviously push them hard in the time that we have them here. So you want to see that hard work pay off, and for those guys to enjoy the success of wins. So, we didn't get that done out at Missouri. It was a tough road trip, and so you feel for these guys, and it just makes you more motivated to turn around and put a new plan for them together for the next week and work towards getting that fixed. I thought in the Missouri game we did some good things from a special teams standpoint, the first of which was managing the wind. It was definitely a factor out there, and from my 5 years living in Muncie, Indiana, I know all about the wind. We had our house used to face west and sort of just would pound against the side of the house, and you'd wonder, is this house ever gonna make it through some of these nights with that wind howling through? And we certainly had a very serious wind out there. I was very pleased with Kai and the success he had rugby punting in that game and managing the wind from that standpoint. So it was nice to have that tool in our box and be able to use that. We had a really good net punt of almost 47 yards in the game. And Mitch hit all touchbacks except one. And again, with the way that wind was serious and changing around, that was also really, really good to see. Our punt pressure unit was able to create a play, which, in part was helped by a miscue on their part, but that unit certainly played hard and did some good things in that game. But there are also, some other opportunities that we didn't take advantage of. We let a punt hit the ground and roll, and that backed us up, which was disappointing. And then on our kickoff return unit, we're still losing some one-on-one battles there, which we're determined to get that fixed, whether it's improving technique and understanding, or again just finding the right mix of guys out there on that unit. We've got to get that going. That's a unit that I personally take great pride in, going way back in my career. So I want to make sure we continue to address that. But looking ahead, when you look at these guys, to me, it all starts with number 0, Anais Smith. This guy is a special teams coordinator's nightmare. He's just a truly explosive, dynamic football player, and I think one of the best in the country. In my long career, build relationships with guys, and I usually get a call from Bruce Feldman or Pete Thamel about players. They'll say, "Hey, who's the first guy that comes to your mind that we should put on such and such a list, and this is the guy for me. He's really like a video game character to me. When I was a kid, you had the electric football game, and you'd plug it in and could kind of turn it up, and my parents got it for me, and I remember it was the Steelers and the Rams, because they had played in that 79-80 season Super Bowl. Other than the Giants, the Rams were my team. Loved Jack Youngblood, Jackie Slater, and Dennis Hara. Vince Ferragamo was the quarterback, right? You got an Italian quarterback. That's right in my wheelhouse. Fred Dreyer was on that team. Hacksaw Reynolds playing Mike linebacker. I love those guys. And it was a great Super Bowl. So I had the electric football game. And then a few years later, the Mattel handheld games came out, right? And those were cool. You'd wear out your thumbs and, all the little dots on the thing. You'd take it on the school bus with you, right? So then right about end of high school, college, you had Tecmo Bowl. Tecmo Bowl was great. You could pick your team. I think they had like 4 runs and 4 passes. You could run trap, you could run outside zone, you could run toss sweep. You could throw 4 verticals. You could run curl flat. It was pretty cool. In college, guys would come home after a long night out and turn on the Tecmo Bowl, or guys would have Tecmo Bowl parties, right? Then the Madden stuff, that's after my time. I know that's had a pretty good run itself. So then you have this guy. And to me, this guy is like his own video game character. He's averaging 20-plus yards per punt return. He's had huge returns against Alabama, who does an excellent job with their punt team. Arkansas, who typically does an excellent job with their punt team. So he's not just racking up these yards against some of the lesser opponents that they've played. He's done it against the best people on their schedule. So he's definitely a guy that has been keeping me up at night this week. One of their running backs, young running back, Owens, who's very explosive, he's the kick returner, and then Smith is the off returner. So they got 2 very dangerous guys back there. Their kicker, number 47, Bond. It's not James Bond, but Bond. He's got a long of 52. I got to assume he likes his martinis shaken, not stirred, right? They got a steady long snapper. And then lastly, they've got a fifth-year senior veteran punter that we've seen the last 2 years. Another Australian guy. This guy's an Australian with a Greek name. So I'm sure there's a story there. I'd love to chat with him pregame if I had time about his family history and how a Greek family ended up in Melbourne, Australia. So that's got to be pretty cool and right in my wheelhouse. But he's an angle punter. He also rugby punts. And the thing about Texas A&M is that they play a lot of their best players on special teams, and obviously that's apparent with the returners, but even just other guys sprinkled into all the units, you can tell that this is a priority for them. So we definitely got our hands full this week. We definitely have a lot of matchup challenges, one-on-one matchup challenges. So we're having a good week so far. I've enjoyed practice the last 2 days and the spirit out there. So we need to continue that here as we get into the second half of the week and go out there on a mission to contain these guys.
Pete, when you're looking at, the field goal calls that you guys made on some of those short downs and things last week, how much are you involved in those decision-making processes, and what did that kind of look like, from the sideline in terms of deciding to go for it versus having Mitch go out there?
Sure. Well, no, we're constantly in conversation, and the added level to it last week was the wind. And so, very proud of Mitch that he hit 4 or 5 under those circumstances. And the first one, which was the one he missed, we were deliberating what to do there. And it's always a challenge when you punt from the 30-something yard line, because you might end up only netting, 14, 15, 16 yards in that situation. And, 4th and longs are low percentage plays to convert. and early in the game, and you're thinking if you can get 3 points there, at least you get some momentum and so forth. So, those are the tough ones when you add the wind into the equation, when you're already in a real gray area relative to what you might net if you punt, the low percentages if you go on offense, and then the fact that with the wind it might be a fringe field goal. But the rest of the day, I mean, he was cranking them, and that was really good to see that we at least came away with 3 points on those drives. And so no, Shane and I and Coach Loggins, and we're on the headset and talking about that. And the challenge in that game was that the wind seemed to change every time you needed to worry about it. And so coming out of that game, hitting 4 out of 5 field goals was good to see under the circumstances. And again, Kai having success with the rugby punts was good to see as well.
Pete, a bigger program question, bigger picture question. You get
Okay.
what I'm trying to say.
I know exactly what you're trying to say. Go ahead.
Anyway, what I was trying to get at is, I know you're a humble man. I know you'll probably give credit to the coaching staff as a whole, and it's a something that you guys do as a group. But with the success that you guys have had over the last couple of years, you've been able to bring in a pair of Division II players. You've had a lot of FCS players come in. How much of your experience of coaching at Division III and some of these lower schools, how much of your input has maybe helped in being able to identify, all right, that guy isn't a Division II guy. That guy's not a FCS guy,
Right.
based on your just experiences in your past.
Right. Well, I appreciate that. No, I think good players are good players, and guys that have the right mix of talent and skills for their position, but then of course the intangibles. And you look back to last year, and Nate Atkins, I think, will go down as one of the great additions to this program, and came in from an FCS school and was basically only recruited by that FCS school because he was an in-state player and a coach's kid, right? And he makes the most of that opportunity, helps lead that team to the playoffs in the FCS, and then comes here for his 5th year and contributes to our team in an incredible way, not just productivity on the field, but just how he handled himself in this building every day, and his attention to detail and his savvy. To me, I know I'm sort of old school traditionalist in a lot of ways, but those throwback type players, you really, really appreciate them. And that's why I believe Nate's already made an NFL team and having some success, because that offensive staff at Denver and that special teams coach in Denver can look at this guy and say, I can give him next to no reps this week, but I can have him ready to play a multitude of different positions if guys go down and so forth. And that's what Nate did. He brought so much versatility to us, and was just a low maintenance guy. And when I throw that around, that's like one of the highest compliments that you can make. Mario Anderson, and I know we've talked in here before about when we first looked at Mario and Coach Beamer and Taylor Edwards, and then they brought the video to me among other people to look at and kind of give some input on. And the great thing that I've seen with Mario is how he has grown and developed and flourished with the resources around him here. That's the thing that I really appreciate about those guys, and it resonates so much with me because, my days at Lehigh, like if we gave those kids a T-shirt, they were doing cartwheels, and at Elon, if you got an extra T-shirt for something, that was a big deal. I get messages from those guys. I got a message from one of our old nose guards at Elon. He's like, I still have some of that gear, and like that's what it's all about. One time at Ball State, we beat Central Michigan, and the Quiznos subs or whatever after the game were probably made on Thursday night, and we pulled off and we got the guys double cheeseburgers on the way home. You would have thought we just won the Super Bowl, So those guys come in and they don't take things for granted, and they tend to appreciate things a little bit more. And the same is true for a guy like Josh Simon coming in from Western Kentucky. Yes, Western Kentucky's a good Group of 5 program, and football's important there, but they're still not eating the way these kids eat, and they're still not traveling the way these kids travel, and they're still not just having the support day to day that the guys in this program and at this level get. So there's a place in my heart for those guys, and it's very satisfying coaching those guys once they get here, because I know exactly where they've come from, and I don't forget where I've come from. And I hope we continue to look for those guys in the future. I really do. I know we will, because now there's a track record of those guys having success here and showing that they can do it. So that's something that excites me about what lies ahead.
You had a couple of big special teams game changers last year against A&M. The kick return, some pressure. With how much players change year to year on those units for both teams. Can you even take anything from that, or is this just a clean slate starting over for this week?
Yeah, a little bit of both. As we've said in here many times now, every year is different, every team's different, the circumstances change. But we do look back at the stuff that we did in those games, and some of the the thoughts you had coming out of it. But there are a lot of things that do change, and the biggest of which is a lot of the personnel involved. So every year is different, and teams keep evolving and tweaking and utilizing their personnel, as they see best fit. So there is a familiarity from having played these guys the last 2 years. But that at this point in the season, and because of changes in the roster and so forth, that things are always going to be a little bit different. How's your new job going?
It's going good. Thank you.
So far, so good?
So far, so good, like in Columbia.
You're back for a second week, so I'm going to
that
trust
must
that
mean
all's
something.
well. I'm going to trust that all's well.
It's good. Everyone has talked about the offensive line injuries ad nauseum. How does that impact you on special teams?
That's Latin, right? Ad nauseum. I like to throw in some Latin every once in a while.
I don't know what it
too.
actually means.
Yeah. I think I do. Think nausea, right? So you're talking about it to a certain point at which you get sick to your stomach. That's my interpretation of it. But of course, I was a business major, and so I did take a few liberal arts classes too.
That makes a lot of sense.
All right. So now the question. Ad nauseum about the O-line.
O-line. How does that impact you on special teams and how you rotate guys in and out of practice on the, on your units?
It does. It does. Our field goal unit kind of reflects the offensive line, because you're primarily using those guys on your field goal unit. And so it's been a challenge. You try to get your first and second group reps in practice on Tuesdays, and we have struggled to have a second unit. And the first unit has been, and I need to go back and look at it, but I'm willing to venture and say that we have not had 2 weeks in a row with the same guys in the same positions on the field goal unit. So that's a challenge. And it's just a challenge for the basic protection. But it also becomes a challenge when you want to do other things, all right, which is no secret that we've done with that unit. So, no, there's definitely a ripple effect for me at every position when there are injuries. So now you have less offensive linemen, you've got to use more defensive linemen. When you're using more defensive linemen, now, the defensive line coach is used to having those guys in his meeting at a certain time, and you need to steal those guys. And so there's all kinds of, unintended consequences from every everything that happens, starting with injuries. And now you might have to train somebody to do something who in the past has not had to do it, right? And now you're going into, the second half of your season, and you're saying, man, this guy needs more reps at something. He doesn't have that critical mass of reps, to have that technique be habit for him yet, So it definitely adds a layer of worry. It's not just a matter of saying, hey, get in there and do this, and especially when you're looking at those dudes that this team has on the defensive line, and the kind of disruption they cause. It's definitely something that you are spending time trying to make sure it's buttoned up this week.
Okay, kind of playing off that with the injuries and also the fact that you mentioned the 1978 New York Yankees at the start. Catfish Hunter had suffered through some health problems in 77 and 78, and when the Yankees started gaining ground on the Red Sox, he got really hot individually.
Okay.
Is there...
This is great.
Okay. Is there a potential special teams Catfish Hunter that we could see kind of break out in these last 5 games of the year?
That's very, very, very interesting. Well, I hope there's multiple guys that, we're in here talking about in a few weeks for some of their contributions. I will say that we have a large number of freshmen playing on different units right now that we've been trying to move through the lineup, and some guys that we're trying to make decisions on relative to, can we max out their 4 games and not burn a red shirt, or are they going to play a substantial enough amount that we're saying, okay, between their offensive and defensive position or special teams, that we're going to be full go on them for the next several weeks. So let's say to be continued on that. It's a 2-part episode, and let's check back in on that in a few weeks, and hopefully I'll have some positive things to report back on it at that point. No, that would be really good, because one of the things I'm always looking for is guys that keep improving as the season goes on. And we mentioned Mario Anderson before. I feel like he's gotten better as a player, watching him. And obviously as he's playing more at running back, he's not playing as much on special teams for us right now. But, you see him pass protect. You see just his body movements in the spring. Everything he did was high and narrow. Even though he's a shorter, compact guy. But now you see him bending better and playing in a football position with his weight centered better. And that's translating to pass protection and things of that nature. It was translating on kickoff return and some of the things he was doing for us, because it's all the same, right? It's all football 101. And so I get great satisfaction out of seeing that. And conversely, you see some freshmen at this point who maybe are hitting a wall that need to push through it and need to keep getting better. And, we do drill work on Tuesdays and Wednesdays absolutely every week for 5 minutes. There's going to be a couple special teams drills, fundamentals that we do. And Sundays we do fundamental work, and so you're looking. We do competitive drills even on Tuesdays at this point in the season, taking time away from schematics because we want to see guys continue to develop and grow over the course of the season. And so, because we put that time into it, you want to see some guys continuing an upward trajectory. And I think a challenge for some of the freshmen is that this is a longer season maybe than some of them are used to. Some of them might be getting ready to go into basketball season right now before you know it. And here we are with several games left in the football season. So there's a mental maturity that goes along with that of continuing to push yourself and take away, not just go through a drill for 5 minutes and say, okay, I got through that, but what am I taking out of that drill and how can I now apply it and show improvement? And that's something that's really important to me. And I'm on the guys about it. I mean, look, I've said this to you before, like, I do this job a certain way, and I'm going to go hard. Going to go hard until the day comes when you hang up the whistle. And so I don't take my foot off the gas, and I don't let anything go. And if a guy's got a step out of place, he's going to hear about it, and that doesn't mean he's getting his butt ripped. It just means he's going to get feedback. That's called coaching. Like, you want feedback, immediate feedback. You want feedback off the video when we meet on it the next day, or when a guy pops by the office to watch some stuff with me, and you want guys that are going to take that feedback and now go out there and try to apply it the next time they get an opportunity and improve. And so that's what we got to keep pushing them to do. And when you have that across the board, across a lot of players, then the results help the entire team.
Hey, Coach. So 2 years ago when you guys went to College Station, Anaya Smith had a punt return touchdown to open the game. Is that something, like those kind of plays he made against y'all a few years ago or even last year, do they pop up in film when you guys are studying him?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then what are you trying to do to, make sure that stuff doesn't happen again, I guess?
Yeah. So the first thing I'll tell you about that play, which, I'll take to my grave, it was an amazing football play. So there's probably only 1 in 100 punt returners that would have even considered returning that punt. It was a pooch punt that came down out at the numbers on the 5-yard line, right? So 99% of the returners in the country are going to, decoy there and let that thing hit the ground and hopefully roll into the end zone. And it was a point on the field where we had the gunners playing the ball. And then, quite frankly, he just made several guys on our coverage unit miss. It made them look silly. So, you learn from those things, and we learned immediately from that. And we've adapted some of the things we do because of that one play. In some of those situations. But I also hope that 2 years later that some of the guys that we have covering punts, because I look back to the guys that were out there on that unit that night and, the great kids, but, some of them were playing in their first college football game that night. Some of them were fifth-year walk-on guys and different guys that were, just outclassed by him when it came to a moment of truth and having to get him on the ground. So I hope that at this point, some of the guys that we have on our unit will match up a little bit better too, right? Now, the rest of that night, ironically, Kai Kroger, and even on that particular punt, Kai Kroger had a really good night in terms of trying to make that guy go laterally and hem him in towards the sideline and so forth. So that's an important part of it too, that the punter's got to do his job of putting the ball, relatively speaking, where it's supposed to go to give the coverage a chance. All right. Good seeing everybody. Thanks so much.